Hello there y'all and welcome. I'm Rain and this is Fennec Fables. I'm going to be skipping the usual intro and getting right into it. This video is going to be a little different than usual as I wanted to discuss something that happened recently and to also maybe encourage y'all to try something new. As many of you that have been listening to these videos for a while will know, I'm a friendly local game store manager. My shop handles more than just games, but that's the area that I handle as it's what I have the most knowledge and enthusiasm for. There's also a local charity group that I love and go to when they run events. It is set up where various game masters will volunteer their time to run various one-shots and different systems, where players will purchase a ticket for a table and the money from those sales as well as raffles will go to the charity. The charity that we are playing for often changes, but some of the past ones have been women's shelters, veterans funds, and most recently being a charity supporting the local LGBTQ outreach in the area. Of course, this is one of the ones that is near and dear to my heart, so instead of my usual ticket purchases, I instead volunteered to run for this event. I wanted to break into something new and fun for this one, and since my copy of Kids on Bikes had not yet arrived, though it did show up on the day of the event ironically enough, I decided to run Heckin Good Doggos, and I'm here to tell y'all all about that system. I wanted to explain about the system and give my thoughts on it, with a later video having me share the story of the game I ran. I will say before I get into this that this is not a paid sponsorship and that everything I have to say is my own opinions. I try to make sure y'all will know if I've ever been given anything, either a book or money or any sort of incentive to look at anything, and though it hasn't happened yet, who knows, maybe it will someday in the future. Anyways, on to the actual game. Heckin Good Doggos is a game made by the fun folks over at Wedding Games. It, along with a few other games they have, are made using the +1 system, which is an exceptionally easy to use and engaging system. The premise, as the name of it suggests, is that you along with your fellow players are all heckin' good doggos, and a close group of friends all working toward a goal, most likely helping your best friend, and doing the best you can to make your way in the world. The real fun of this particular game is that it has you try and completely swap your usual mindset, and instead has you try to envision actions based on that of dogs, if albeit a bit more intelligent. The game, according to their own description, is a family-friendly, all-ages role-playing game where the players take on the roles of humankind's best friends, the dog. It is a game of dogs doing dog stuff that focuses on the kinds of stories and adventures dogs can get into, such as finding their favorite treats, barking up that squirrel in the tree, finding their human best friends who've gone missing, banishing an ancient spirit that threatens the neighborhood, scavenging for supplies in a futuristic wasteland, and so much more. The core rules are aimed to have your group operating in a grounded reality, but as those later descriptions hinted at, there are variations in the core book to have your dog set in a fantastical or gritty setting, including variations for magic, mechs, historical fantasy, post-apocalypse, and interestingly enough, superheroes. All of these still use the core +1 system, but have some options that are generally a swapping of the standard PC creation for a few additional options, as well as perhaps a few extra gimmicks, such as superheroes having superpowers that you can select from or create depending on the involvement you wish to have. That reminds me, before I forget, while there can be conflict and fights in Heckin Good Doggos, the intent is that your dog will never outright perish. They can be harmed and have detriments, but as the game is meant to be accessible to all ages, there is an added safety net there, which is good because no one wants to think about the poor dog getting seriously hurt. There's a whole website about knowing if the dog's perished after all. Character creation is really easy and can be completed in honestly less than 5 minutes. First you get to select your breed, which is this game's way of giving you an extra ability that your dog can apply to a thing called a conflict, which I will get into later. Each of the 4 allow you to add a specific type of success for free once a session and is not locked into any particular stereotype. The breeds are called cute, friendly, big, and fast. And any type of dog can have any type of breed, from a cute pit bull to a fast dachshund. Do not think you have to limit yourself. This is also when you get to describe what your dog looks like, which can vary from purebred to an adorable mutt, whichever kind of dog you want to be. Next comes your stats and skills. Your character will have 3 general attributes, each with their own set number, called its stat. as well as skills that fall into that attribute. The core game stats are Brawn, which is your moving and physicality, Smarts, which handles your ability to put things together, either emotionally or mentally, and Guts, which involves your resolve to get into things. When you are initially building your doggo, you will be able to distribute 10 points among the 3 core stats, with a minimum of 1 in any particular attribute and a max of 6. Unless you're running a game in which you can go plus ultra, as it were, such as superheroes or anything with a supernatural influence. The average for a dog is 3, which can help you set the understanding of power levels, as it were. Next, you have puppy training, where you get to pick 3 skills to become proficient in. There are 9 skills, 3 in each attribute, and you'll be able to split it however you wish, whether that's 1 in each or some other split, but be aware that what will come in later depends on what you put into your skills, which is called skill manipulation, which I'll be describing later. Under Brawn, we have Performing, which is showing off speed and strength. Staying is your ability to hold ground and endure, and finally Sneaking, which is rather self-explanatory. Under Smarts, there is Sensing, which is understanding the emotions of those around you and being able to express your own feelings. Knowing, which is your accumulation of outside information, and finally Fiddling, which is your application of knowledge. Typically, this is meant to be you triggering one or so effects, such as knowing how to operate a car window or which buttons turn on a TV. For Guts, we have Investigating Something, which is trying to put clues together, Sniffing, which is you trying to track something down, and finally Surviving, which is you being able to contend with being out in the wilderness. After this comes your Describing Your Best Friend, which can be an individual or a group. Typically you're adopting humans, but it can be different. Once per game, you can call on this relationship to explain how you know, find, or do something within reason, of course. You also fill out that way you'd like to help, with a small snippet of how you like to be of help to those around you, which can also be invoked for a similar purpose. The last section is about you describing where you live, but that is better off letting you explore yourselves, as it's highly dependent on the group and the game you're playing in. As you play, you'll be able to improve various aspects, such as the number of skills you're proficient in, the pips in a skill, or even stats at certain points depending on the story. You can even increase your paw size, which is the amount of cards that you can hold, which are part of a resolution mechanic. We're almost there, don't worry none, I'm getting there. Be aware that your stats also act like your health and defense in this game, so it's possible to have all the brawn in the world, but if you have 1 in Smarts and take damage there, you will become incapacitated until it recovers. Don't worry too much, as you can always heal back up using those cards I just mentioned earlier, as well as any stat that's at 0 is set to 1 at the end of a scene. What happens when a particular stat is reduced to 0 can vary by game and how serious you want things to be, but by the nature of the game, I'd recommend keeping things relaxed. The game suggests that a Brawn 0 may be them having to collapse and lay down as they try to recover, a Smarts is them becoming confused and running about, and Guts is them fleeing out of fear, but you can vary this to your table's whims. For the defense aspect, that is the target number of successes that must be achieved to harm that particular stat. I'll be getting into target numbers later, but suffice it to say, the bigger the number is, the harder it is to hit, and the lower is the easier. So if you have the aforementioned 1 in Smarts, they only need 1 success in that to harm it. When a stat is harmed, it is reduced, but be sure to keep track of that separately from your maximum, as you will be able to fix it later, as I said with those cards earlier. Fortunately, harm isn't usually that big a focus, but when it does happen, it also limits your ability to manipulate your skills. Speaking of which, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the game. Heckin Good Doggos is a narrative-focused game that uses the +1 system's D6s and a deck of cards as its resolution items, depending on the severity of the challenge you're contending with. When you describe what your character would like to do, the Game Master will ask for a skill roll relevant to the task you're undertaking and give it a target number. The target number is the number of successes that you are trying to get to succeed at the current task. To be a success, it must be a 5 or a 6 on the D6. The amount of these D6s are equal to the training in the skill. For example, if you're trying to sneak past your best friend as he watches TV on the couch, I may say the target number was 3. Then you would look at your sneaking and have that many dice to roll. But what if you don't have any or are not proficient in a skill? Well, that's where the +1 system's dice manipulation system comes into play. Remember earlier when I mentioned that stats allow you to manipulate a skill? Well, here's where that comes into play. Your rolls can be manipulated either before a roll or after a roll by spending your stats. But don't worry, anything spent resets after the roll is completed, so go ham! These skill rolls can be affected as follows. Each adjustment takes away one of a stat up to your current total. Before a roll, you can temporarily gain an untrained skill. The dice are bought separately. Or you can add a die to the roll. For example, roll 4 dice on a skill with 3 training. Now, after you roll, you can also do some other manipulations. This includes adding a pip to a die, exampling changing a 4 to a 5, or re-rolling any number of dice, but you must keep the result, as in you can only do this once per skill roll. In this way, even if you aren't proficient in a skill, you can still give it a go and there's a chance. For my prior example of sneaking past a best friend on the couch, let's say you had a sneaking of 2 and a brawn of 4. You could spend 1 to add to your dice pool, leaving you with 3 left. You roll, getting a 6, 2, and 3. You can spend 1 after the roll to re-roll that 2 and 3, getting 2 4s. If you spend your last 2 points, you can bump those both up to get 5, and that's 3 successes. Some skill rolls will not have any substantial risk behind them, while others may. Consequences for a failed skill check can just mean the doggo will have to think of another angle, while others may result in harm, discovery, or possibly even change the entire scene around it. This is, of course, depending entirely on the game you and the others want to engage in. The most dangerous skill rolls are called challenges, and these are for ones that the entire pack of doggos will roll toward together. This can be things such as the group spreading out to search for clues, scavenge for food, working together to push something heavy, etc. Each doggo handles the skill rolls and manipulations as usual on their own rolls, and once they are done, all successes are added together toward the target number, which typically is magnitudes higher than any one dog could achieve alone. Fortunately, there is an ace up your sleeve, or some jokers if you're lucky. Remember when I mentioned that deck of cards as part of the resolution mechanic earlier? Well, at the start of the game and at the end of each scene, players will draw from a standard deck of cards until they have a card amount equal to their current paw size. New doggos start off with a max paw size of 4. The number on the cards do not matter, just the suits, as you can use these to gain a success to a skill roll, but this success can only be applied if the suit matches up with what you're attempting to do, and you can only do this once per skill roll. The suits line up as such, with hearts being called cutes, which aligns with disarming with looks and, well, looking cute. Spades being called friends, where you attempt to manipulate with friendship. Diamonds, which is a more direct physical threat called teeth. This can be shows of force, including actually biting, but also including growling and threatening. And finally, there are clubs, which is called paws, which lines up with physicality but not aggression. What may apply to a situation is going to lean into Game Master discretion, but it's part of the fun for you to be able to describe how a suit may apply to a current situation. So go wild, guys. There are also, speaking of wilds, jokers, which are of course wild and can be used for anything, but you're likely going to want to save those for conflicts. These are the big show-stopping events where your group comes into conflict with another. This doesn't always mean physically, but it can be a disagreement as well as any other time your goals don't align with another group's. To resolve a conflict, the Game Master will tell you how many of the various suits you may need, and your group tries to work together to put the necessary cards down to resolve it. As you lay cards down, you describe how your actions affect the narrative. Don't forget that at character creation, you also had breeds that let you once a game add a free success to a conflict depending on the suit type you had selected. An example from the book mentions your group coming across a sad older dog who had not frolicked and played in many ages. The group can lay 3 hearts to play to their heartstrings, 5 spades to listen and engage with the plight and make him feel better, or 4 clubs as you drag them out into the yard and play with them yourselves. If your group has the necessary cards, you describe your actions and the Game Master goes through the resolution, but If you do not have the needed cards for success, you still play what you can and a consequence can resolve. In the above example, if you're unable to help the older dog, a doggo takes smarts damage as the older one sighs, likely feeling even lonelier than before, and this hurts your group. There is no initiative to track in Heckin Good Doggos, as all dogs work together and things resolve in a looser narrative function. But there are still steps for everyone to be able to engage and affect the story as it unfolds. After a conflict happens, all the players draw back up from their max paw size and things continue on with the success or consequences that transpired. So with that, it explains roughly all the core rules of the game. If you thought that sounded like fun, I recommend snagging a book, or if you prefer, there is a PDF, and I'll have a link for their website down below, so I believe it's currently being sold on their drive-thru RPG account. Overall, I quite enjoyed the system, and it was a far stretch away from what I usually play, which tends to be a more heavy on combat and distances. I think it's just the kind of game for people that have grown tired of roughing it with more crunchy systems and want to take a step back for something a little more carefree. I found it exceedingly reader-friendly, and even someone that is new to running or playing games should be able to play or run this with no trouble. Everything I've explained in this part of the video only takes about 15 pages at most from the book, and the rest is devoted to cute little sections on setting up scenarios and offering up variations to play in. The aforementioned magic, mechs, superheroes, and the like. If I had to give it a score out of 5, I'd say my personal tastes, it was a solid 4 out of 5, and definitely worth picking up even for just some one-shots and when you want to swap things up in the group. If y'all like this sort of content, by the way, be sure to tell me in the comments and I can see about doing more of it in the future. If you can, a like, a share, or especially a subscribe really helps as I work on getting more of these videos out. I've been working on my way to get 500 subscribers, and each new one is a great joy to me. If you enjoy answering TTRPG prompts or questions, please join me on Twitter or Blue Sky, where I post daily, which is in the description down below and linked on the main channel page. Who knows, your responses may be part of a future video. If you have any suggestions for future topics, I'm always interested in what folks would like to hear, and you can send them either by email or by joining the channel Discord, where you can chat with me and fellow cool people. Thanks again, y'all, and I hope that these videos were useful to you and help you tell better tales. Bye! Hey there, y'all. Editing Rain here. I actually totally forgot to bring this up. If you took it out, we now have a merch channel. Well, merch Etsy. But I've got some really cool new stickers up. Hopefully you guys will enjoy them. Check them out. They should be popping up on the screen right now. And I'm currently working on getting some more awesome artists paid and commissioned to do more awesome things. If it does well, I'm even hoping to do some shirts and maybe even some pins. So if you're interested, the link should be down below. Please check it out, share it with your friends. It really does help me out. But yeah, that's Editing Rain done. Have a great day, guys. Bye.